All right. Welcome everyone to the next edition of Ask a CGen webinar. In this, we have an exciting topic today as well. What they don't teach you in engineering college, or things I wish I knew when I was 20. The speaker is Mani Sridhar, or Sridhar Mani, because of passport changes, from CG 2002 ECE. Sridhar Mani is an accomplished professional. He works for Google. His career includes a long span in companies such as Infosys, Juniper, and now at Google. In Google, he works on the moonshot projects called Google X, where now he focuses on wireless laser-based communication. And we have he's graciously agreed to present to us today. So without further ado, I will be transferring the presentation. But in just a moment before we do that, for the logistics, let's all, if we are not speaking, please mute our audio and video. We can post our questions in the chat, and then I'll moderate and I can relay them. Towards later part, we will open up for audio discussions as well. So you will get a chance to ask your questions orally later as well. Okay, was there a question? All right, now let me stop sharing, and then Mani, please feel free to share.
Sounds good. Give me 1 second. Can you please confirm if you're able to see my screen?
Yes, it's showing up great.
Awesome. Thank you. I'll just transition. Okay, I'll go ahead and try after this. Thank you, Eskana. It's great to be here. Hello and good evening, everybody. So please stop me anytime if you don't see the slide move. I've moved to the second slide, Eskana. You're able to see it, right? Just want to confirm.
Yes, I can see it. It's showing up 10x.
Perfect. Thank you. So I'm going to share some simple steps that I've observed very successful people do. These are applicable to your career, finances, or personal growth. And the best part is they're not difficult at all. You can do these too. I'm going to start with the question. Of these three areas, career, finances, and personal growth, is one more important, or is one most important for you compared to the others? I would love it if you can just open up the chat window within the Zoom app and just say, 1 or 2 or 3, or even multiple numbers, if more than one of these are important. Could you please go ahead and do that right now? And while you do that, I just want to take a minute to convey my appreciation to Sigana. So while preparing for this presentation, I was blown away by the amazing amount of content and resources that are already available on the Sigana website and the Ask a CGen website. In addition to the webinars by other alumni, which I found very, very informative and useful, I particularly loved the Guindy Online Live database. This is such a treasure trove of information. It caters to all kinds of requests, be it about studying further after CG, working in the government sector in India, becoming an entrepreneur. The list is just endless. And to the CEG alumni who thought about this and executed on this, I want to say fantastic work and kudos. Okay, let's get to the stuff that they don't teach you at the College of Engineering, Indy. Okay. So our working careers are typically 40 years long with 2 parts. And each of these parts is roughly 20 years long. Of course, the split can also be different for different people. For some people, it might be 15 years for the first part, 25 years for the second part, 10 and 30 for others, and so on. But the important thing is this: the first part of your career is about building knowledge and experience in a few areas. And today, it's totally okay if you feel confused about which area to pick. You will figure this out. And not only that, once you figure out that area, you will be successful in building your knowledge and experience in that area with your own individual efforts, your hard work over time, right? I'll talk about some things that you can do for this first part of your career in subsequent slides. I'd also encourage you to keep looking out for future discussions in the CG Alumni Forum around topics such as, should I go and study further? Should I work in a company? Should I start my own business? All of these questions are related to the first part. The second part is slightly more complex and interesting. Being successful in the second part of your career requires that you influence other people, lead a group of people, keeping your emotions in check, and a bunch of other things. If I were to put it a different way, the skills that get you to the end of the first part, which is your own hard work and your time management, are still required, but they are very, very different from the skills that you need to be successful in the second part of your career. Now, that's still quite far away for most of you. And you might be thinking, this is not super urgent. It's not a super urgent focus area for many of you. And that's true, right? But you should be mindful about the second part of your career because fewer people get that right. And you should think about that from time to time. And what do I mean by this? Look for opportunities, even in the first part of your career, that help you build the skills that you need in the second part of your career. Right? So look for opportunities to lead other people, look for opportunities to, how you can influence people without having the authority and so on. Okay. Now, if you want some practical tips on how to understand, to understand how to be successful in both these parts, right? I highly recommend this fantastic 200-page book that I read a few years ago. It was published pretty recently. When I was reading this book, I didn't realize that the author, Chandramouli Venkatesan, is also an alumnus of AC Tech. I found this out only when I was preparing for today's discussion. And sadly, he is no more alive, but I would definitely recommend checking this book out. Next, let's talk about something that I think everyone, and not just engineers, should learn as early in their lives as possible. And I'm trying to teach this to my kids as well, but with very little success, I should admit. And that is to invest early, right? Albert Einstein called compound interest the eighth wonder in this world. And I'm guessing most of you know this, but let me ask anyways. Let's take these two equations that I have on the screen, right? And let's assume for a second that m is greater than 1. So it's 2 or 3 and 2, 3, 4 and so on. So if m is greater than 1, then which of these, x or y, is going to be greater as m stays constant and n increases? So please enter your answers in the chat. I'll just wait for a few seconds. All right, the responses are starting to come in. So you're right. The value of y is going to be much more as n increases compared to x, as long as m is greater than or equal to 2, right? So what I'm trying to say here is x and y. X is an example of a linear function, and y is an example of an exponential function, respectively. Compound interest that is used in finance is an exponential function of time. So if n is the number of years, right, y will be much greater when you start earlier compared to somebody who starts much later, because it compounds over time. So I used to think that investing in general is done by really rich people with a lot of cash on hand. But here is the interesting thing. You don't need a lot of money to get started, right? Let's assume that each of us saves 250 rupees every month, goes to the SBI branch in the CEG main building, and puts his money in a recurring deposit that gives us 8% annual interest, right? This graph on the screen shows you the amount of money in the SBI account, that is your current balance, if you started at age 20, that is the blue line, and you continued until you turned 60. So the blue line is from 20 to 60 for 40 years. The red line is from 30 to 60, 30 years, and the yellow line is from 40 to 60, 20 years. Here's the next question I have for you guys, right? The person who started at age 20 and went on until they turned 60, how much money do you think they put in total? They contributed in total every month. If you add up all that amount, by the time they turn 60, how much money do you think they put in the account? Their own money, not the interest, right? Can you try and think about that and put your answers in the chat? So it's 250 rupees per month, and they did it for 40 years, the person at age 20. So it's 250 rupees per year per month. That's 3,000 rupees per year, and 3,000 rupees per year for 40 years. All right, I'll not keep everybody waiting, but the amount is 1,20,000 rupees. So the person who started at age 20, great. Yeah, I see the answers coming. Great. So it's 1,20,000 rupees. The person who started at age 20 contributed a total of 1,20,000 rupees over 40 years. What about the person who started at age 40? How much money did they contribute in total? Again, answers in the chat. So they did it for 20 years, 3,000 rupees per year for 20 years. 60,000 rupees. Great. Thank you. So the person who started at age 20 contributed twice the amount of money over 40 years as the person who started at age 40. But you know the interesting part? At the end of 40 years, when they all turned 60, the person who contributed since age 20 has 6 times as much money in the account. They have around 8,40,000 rupees, whereas the other person who started at age 40 has only 1,40,000 rupees. Okay. This is a very great example of how time is your best friend in the long term. And this is just one simple example, right? Now, very recently in the middle of COVID-19, this excellent book was published, and it tells you a lot more about playing the slow, long game of investing over time, plus a bunch of other related topics. And I highly recommend this book for further reading. All right. Next, let's talk about something that you can do every day, right? Let's say you want to read more books in 2022, right? Rather than spending an entire week or a weekend reading, a book in one stretch, which is not really fun, especially if the book is not very entertaining. Let's say it's a book like this, 2 books that I showed you earlier. It's not fun to, read that continuously. Instead, think about reading 4 to 5 pages per day, right? So if you take Catalyst, which is the book 2 slides ago, it's a 200-page book. You will finish that book in a little bit more than a month. In a year, you will read around 1,800 pages, which is quite a lot, right? Similarly, if you want to exercise and get fit, rather than run for, 1 kilometer every, once in a week, which adds up to around 52 kilometers in a year, walk the 400 or so meters from the hostel to the department every day, right? And 5 days a week. That adds up actually to more than 100 kilometers in 1 year. So the point I'm trying to make is this is the power of small, consistent changes that add up, right? And there's an excellent book on this topic as well. And this also got recently published. If you want to take this one step further, not only do you make small changes, that is, you do small steps every day, make small improvements, every few weeks. So if you started today with 4 to 5 pages every day, after 3 months, aim for 5 to 7 pages every day. And after 6 months, aim for 7 to 10 pages every day, right? So I very strongly believe that the only person you should all be competing with yourself is yourself from yesterday, right? You should be trying to do better than how you did yesterday. All right. Next, let's see how you can do more by doing less, right? Earlier, when we discussed investing, I said time is your ally, or time is your friend in the long term, right? But when it comes to your personal growth in your daily life, your time is very, very limited. So you should invest the time in things that really, really matter to you, such as activities that help you learn something, activities that help you earn more money or improve your health, right? And you will gain a lot of energy and time and freedom if you learn how to say no. And I understand this is not easy, right? Especially in the environment that all of us grow up in. But in my experience, I've seen that saying yes to everything will usually result in nothing getting done well, right? Let me give you an example, a concrete example of this. In 2017 and part of 2018 at work, I was very, very busy, right? And I was completing all of my objectives successfully, right? But I was super busy. And when I asked my manager, right, went and told him, hey, boss, do you think I'm up for promotion right now? Surprisingly, his response was no, right? And it took me some time to understand the feedback. I realized that I could not take up additional responsibilities. When I get promoted, there'll be more responsibilities, right? And I could not take up those responsibilities that were expected of me because I was already fully overloaded with no time left, right? So I had to sort of force myself to find someone else who could take up part of the workload while I'm still accountable, right? I'm still accountable for delivering that work, but somebody else actually does the work, right? So that I could take up my time for new increased responsibilities like managing people and so on. So the bottom line is, in order to do more, you have to do less. What I mean by that is, be careful about how you spend your time and focus on the things that really get you, get you the impact. Next, let's talk about how it is okay to fail, right? You should keep experimenting continuously in your work and in your personal life. And if things don't work as expected, learn from that failure and apply how you can apply it in whatever you do subsequently. The person in this picture, Vinod Khosla, is very, very famous for being the co-founder of Sun Microsystems. Sun Microsystems invented the Java programming language, was eventually sold to Oracle. But here's the interesting thing. Did you know that Vinod Khosla tried so many times before Sun to build businesses and failed, right? He first started a soya milk company in India before he came to the US, right? And that did not work well. And then he came to study in the US. Following his master's, he started a company called Daisy Systems, which went bankrupt. They completely ran out of money. Even 6 months before he started Sun Microsystems, there was another company called Data Dump that he started, but which his co-founder later in an interview said was a spectacular failure, right? So the takeaway is this: failure doesn't matter. Nobody remembers Vinod Khosla's failures, right? Everybody remembers that he was a co-founder of Sun Microsystem. But I bet you that he learned from all those failures and applied all of those failures in his next attempt and repeated this process until he became successful. So don't be afraid of failure. Next, I want to talk about the importance of being around high-performing people. Be around high-functioning, high-quality people, and you're already on the right path for this because you're at CEG, and most of your classmates are super bright people, very sharp, and great people to work together with. The person in this picture, his name is Chamat Palihapitiya. He was one of the early employees at Facebook, and he became a very successful investor after that. In this video that I've provided a link to, he says that at one of his early jobs in Canada, he used to get a lift, that is a ride to work, from one of the company's top executives. By just being there and listening to how this executive, thought about decisions and his thought process before making decisions, Chamat said he was able to level up his own thinking and his own decision-making skills, right? I can't emphasize this enough. In my own career, I've sometimes followed people, even though I was doing well in my present company. I followed really smart people when they moved to a different company. I followed a manager in one of my previous jobs. It has helped me a lot. It sort of gives me an opportunity to step up in terms of learning new things, being uncomfortable myself, and I would definitely highly encourage that as well. Next, let's talk about communication skills and why they are absolutely important for everything that you do in your career. The quality of your communication, how you present and how you talk to others, is really a function of how knowledgeable you are on that particular topic, how well you're practiced for that particular meeting or whatnot, and how talented in general you are at talking and writing, right? In that decreasing order. So knowledge is important. You should also practice before you go for an important meeting or presentation. And how talented you are at talking and writing is less important than the other two, but it is important. I've been talking at work to a lot of my colleagues. I've been writing work documents, creating presentations for quite some time now, but I'm still learning how to do better every time. For this particular presentation, I actually referred to this video. I use this video that I've linked here for preparation to understand how to structure the presentation, how much content I should have in each slide, and so on. But the important thing is to not only see these videos and read them, but apply them. So look for opportunities to constantly practice your talking and writing. If you get an opportunity to talk in front of your classmates about a particular topic that you find interesting, go for it, right? It gives you practice, right? This video is by a professor at MIT. His name is Patrick Winston. He's a computer science professor, but he's very, very famous for his recurring general topic lecture at MIT called How to Speak. So that video is, thanks to YouTube, it's now available for all of us to see. It has over 5 million views. He also wrote this very great book. I've started reading it, but I've not completed. But so far, it looks pretty awesome. Next, I want to talk to you about how important it is to constantly keep networking, that is meeting people and building a professional network. There is a joke that we have at work, right? If you realize you need to hire or hire somebody for your team, you should have started the process of interviewing candidates many months ago. So somebody I know, a very close relative, lost their job during the early days of COVID. Their company decided that they were going to lay off a lot of people. This person had recently finished college and had around a year of work experience, and they had a tough time finding another job. So what this person told me is, by the time they made connections to their college seniors, people who were working at other companies that were hiring, it took almost 6 to 12 months. And during all of this time, they were really, they were unemployed. So here's what you should seriously consider doing, right? Every week, meet one person that you haven't met in a while. This could be your college classmates. If you've just started working, it could be your college classmates. If you're in college, meet your school classmates. Or meet a new person you did not know earlier, right? At work or at college. It could be a senior who's doing ME in a different department. So essentially what I'm saying is, by doing this, you get to find mentors. You might hear about job opportunities before they're actually listed on a website like Naukri.com. Or you might even find a partner for an amazing business idea that you want to do after during college on the side, or even after college. So here's how you could use social media to your advantage, right? A specific instance where I've applied this. Early in my career, I met someone and I worked quite close with one person, and we later on went in different paths, and that person was in a different company. I was in a different company. Many years later, when I was applying for a job in that company, I realized this person was working there. And the fact that we kept in touch helped me get an employee referral, right? And it makes a big difference as opposed to applying directly from the internet. Thousands of people can apply from the internet. When one person in a company refers somebody else, there's a lot more weight to it. Right? And you shouldn't wait until you have to start applying in order to do this. Keep in touch more often, right? All right, we are almost at the end. In the final slide, I want to say that working hard is definitely important, but it is equally or perhaps even more important to decide what exactly you work on, right? So just like in this image, there's a lever being used to lift a very heavy stone or a boulder on the right with little effort by the person on the left. That's the entire principle of a lever. Your work should be that lever that gives you the most value in return for the least effort, right? So there are excellent high-paying jobs in a lot of great companies, including tech companies. But keep in mind, you only have 8 hours every day to work, right? Around 8 hours. And as you have more responsibilities later on in life with your family, the amount of time that you can really focus on work decreases, right? And effectively, what is happening is when you are an employee, you are getting paid by the hour, right? Effectively, right? Instead, let's say you know how to write code and you can build apps, or let's say you don't want to code. Let's say you create content, record a video or write a blog post. When you work like this, that is, you write code and create apps, or you create content and upload it on YouTube or Spotify, right? The output of your work will be useful for you even when you're sleeping. So that's an example of you doing some amount of work and getting massive benefits out of it, right? Because the cost of replication is pretty low. There's an interesting tweet thread that I would highly recommend that you read, and I've provided a link to that in the presentation as well. All right, that sort of brings us to the end of this presentation, and I can now take some take some questions in the chat or from the audience live. SK and I should probably help me on this while I leave the summary up on the screen.
Absolutely. Thank you, Mani. It's anyone who has any questions, please feel free to unmute your mic and ask. And this part of the talk is intended to be a discussion. So there is no questions that are not relevant. So please don't be shy. Anything. you have questions for Mani, and any general questions any of us can help with, please feel free to. So in the time that students are coming up with some questions, Mani, I would like to just ask a simple one. I introduced you briefly to the students. Can you maybe share a little bit more of your career and tell us a little bit about yourself?
Sure. All right. So I finished EG as in the first slide mentioned, and I finished undergraduation in 2002, and right after that I was placed at Infosys. So I worked there between 2002 and 2005 in Bangalore and followed by the US. And in 2005 I was planning to study further for a master's. Then I got an opportunity to work in a networking company in Silicon Valley called Redback Networks. So I'm a network engineer by background, as I spent the most time working with networking companies. 2005 I joined Redback Networks. It got acquired by Ericsson, so I was at Ericsson for a while. And then I worked in a bunch of other networking companies, Juniper Networks, and then a startup in between, before I moved on to Google. And at Google, like you said earlier, SK, I worked on Project Loon, which is their balloon-powered internet project, which is no longer there, by the way. They shut the project down in 2019 or so. And more recently, I worked in this wireless optical communications project. That is the most recent project that I worked on at X.
Thank you so much. And if the students have any other thoughts or questions? So maybe if not, I have, we have questions coming in. Okay. Sundar is asking, in general, youngsters don't have confidence to invest early. What do you suggest to overcome this?
Okay, great question. Sundar, if you mentioned that they don't have the confidence to invest early. Is that because, and I'll definitely answer the question, but I'm probably going to probe a little bit further to understand. Is that because the amount of funds they are working with is limited and they don't want to lose it? Or I'm assuming that could be one reason. Am I getting it right, or are there other reasons? Is it because they are working with limited funds and they don't want to risk losing all of that funds? If you don't mind,
feel free to unmute, and you're also welcome to use. Oh, okay. There is considering fear is what.
Okay. So I would say the way I would think about that is, yes, there is risk in investing. There's no question. And again, it depends on what you're investing in. The investing by itself is a huge topic. And by the way, I definitely recommend seeing some of the other webinars that our alumni have posted on the Sigana website, specifically on this topic, right? So there is a person, if I remember the name correctly, Askana, please correct me. It's Ravi Jagadishan, right?
It's Ram Jagadishan.
Ram Jagadishan, yes. Sorry. Yeah, I'm pretty sure there was a video that I saw that was on this topic. But to answer your question, Sundar, you have a full spectrum of investments that you can do. You know, safe investments like in a nationalized bank like SBI, that's there on the campus. There are more on the other end of the spectrum. There's risky investments where you could invest in derivatives and options in the stock market, right? So you should choose what is the right level of risk for you. Banks are pretty safe. You're not going to lose your principal, right? And also choose the amount which is comfortable for you. So let's say your expenses are, I'm making an example, right? Your expenses are 1,000 rupees a month, right? If you have another 50 rupees, which you don't really need for your expenses, considering investing that amount. So worst case, you lose 50 rupees and you choose an investment vehicle that is very safe, like a nationalized bank, recurring deposit, right? So choose the amount and choose the mode of investment which you feel comfortable with and invest in that. Even that is better just because of the time horizon. If you do this for 20 years, it's better than not doing it, right? If you're comfortable with more risk, you can go into equities trading. The stock market has historically done very well, but choose the bottom line is overcome your fear by choosing an amount that will not significantly materially affect you if you lose it, which you don't want to lose, but even if you lose it, it will not affect you materially, as well as choose the investment vehicle which makes you sleep at night, right? So don't go for risky investments if you don't want to lose the money. Stick to nationalized banks and things like that. I hope I answered your question. If not, please let me know on the chat window. I think there's one more question, SK. Do you want to read, or shall I just? I'll just wait for you to read, please.
Oh, no problem. So this question is from VHK. It is about placement programs in college. They're saying that placements are great according to their expectations, but from the perspective of choice, this is constrained because in placements you're not allowed more than, I think, a finite number of offers. So they have 2 offers. What are your thoughts about not having the choice from a student's perspective?
Okay, it's a good question. I have not thought about this in a while. So I want to start off by saying that I understand the constraints that are, the placement cell at the college works under, and their objective is to place all or as many of the students as possible, and that's the reason why they have these constraints. And I respect that, and I respect that position. That's their policy. They have been pretty clear, and it's well documented. And we have to follow those rules because we're part of that same community. We all want our student classmates to also be successfully placed. I want to ask this to VHK, right? Ultimately, you have to choose one of those 2 offers, right? So the constraint that they're placing is not really different from what you eventually have to do. You have to pick between one of those 2. You can't really pick 2, right? So is your question more about how do I go about picking one of the 2, or is it, I want to have 2 and I want to be able to choose at the last possible minute which of those 2 I will do? We can go either of those paths. I have some thoughts on how you can pick between those 2 offers, but I don't think that's your question, right? If your question is more about I want to have choice and what do I think, I feel that we are part of the university system. There's nothing stopping you from going out on your own and applying for jobs and getting multiple offers. Nobody's stopping you from doing that. But through the university system, I think there is a policy in place that requires you to choose one rather early, and I respect that requirement from the university because they're helping you with this process. I don't know if that answered the question, but please feel free to. Sorry, there was a sir. As a student, I do not have the choice to select what I want. Oh, I'm sorry. I'm probably missing something. When you have 2 offers, you don't have the choice to select what you want. Maybe you could talk a little bit more about this. I don't know if things have changed since I was there. I'm still struggling to understand what you mean you don't have choice.
He means that he can only be given choice on what the placement office says you can go for interviews. That's what I'm getting.
I see.
Okay.
So is that maybe that the requirements of the placement office on branches, on GPAs and departments and so on restrictive is what the thought is? VHK, if you could maybe elaborate more, unmute and maybe talk about it. Or
good evening, sir.
Yes, great.
It's very much grateful to have you, sir. It was really nice. Your presentation was really nice, sir. So I just want to tell this that I had 2 offers for myself, and because that of some of the guidelines from the placement representatives of our college, they had constrained me to one of the companies which gave me a faster response than the other company. Even though I wrote both of the companies, I attended the interviews of both the companies on the same day. So it's quite of really not a dilemma, but I want to have a choice on what I want, and it's getting hurdled by some reasons which I don't know why or what.
I see. Yeah, it's. I hear you. We hear you, VHK. I think, but sounds like this is something that one has to resolve either with the placement cell or with the company. Ask a Cjin has a mentoring program, or maybe we can try to connect you with either the placement folks or with some mentor in the company who maybe would be helpful. Maybe that's that could be a right next step.
Yeah, I'll just second what
Okay.
Efrena said, which is,
Yes.
we need to understand a little bit more of the details in this, and perhaps, one-on-one mentoring session with one senior who can understand the situation, and probably give you some guidance is probably a good idea.
Thank you. And now to Deepak has a few excellent questions. First, Mani, could you please share with us how you got a job in the US after you completed a UG from India? That was the first.
Okay, so that's a very quick one. I did not directly go for a job in the US, so I joined through campus placements. Again, I definitely recommend the campus placement system because it helped me immensely, right? Infosys was there for campus recruiting. I got a job at Infosys in 2002, and I was there working at Infosys in Bangalore and in Chennai between 2002 August when I graduated and until 2004 January. And as part of work at Infosys, I was asked to relocate to the US, and I was working there in the US at Infosys at a customer site for another year or so. And I had already decided that I'm going to go to study further. So I informed my managers that at some point I'm going to study. So they sort of knew that I was leaving at one point, and they're very supportive. And then around that time, I happened to get another opportunity in a company in the Bay Area. So that's how I did it. And different approaches work for different people. I know of people who have also, more recently been able to get jobs directly in companies abroad, and they do their visa, but different approaches work. This is how it worked for me. Thank you,
Mani. The next question is, how did you find that networking is your domain of interest? Did it just happen, or was it by choice? And a corollary to this is, as one is young, your interests drift and they change over time. So how does one trust ourselves to go ahead is the question that Deepak is asking.
Okay. I mean, these are excellent and very thoughtful questions. So Deepak, I want to first say thank you for asking these questions. And I will say that, when I look back, it all adds up. At that time, it seemed very, very unclear to me as well. So like I said in I think in the very first slide, the first part of your career, what do you want to work on? Should you study? Should you work? Should you start your own business? These are pretty important questions that you might not have the answers for. And don't worry, it's totally okay. It's perfectly okay to feel that way. Okay, that's the one thing I want to leave you with. Second, how did I find networking to be my domain of interest, right? My dad was also a telecom person, right? So that therefore it sort of followed. Since a young age, I used to hear him talk to people, and I thought, oh, this sounds like an interesting area to be. In hindsight, when I think about it, maybe I should have gone into computer science. I could have. I didn't go into computer science, but in hindsight, maybe I should have. But so all to say that it's not like I had figured it all out when I was young, and I'm on the path where I thought I wanted to be. It just so happened because I saw somebody who was doing it, and it seemed like an interesting area to be. And there were lots of opportunities. In general, computers and telecom in general had a lot of opportunity around the time I graduated. The telecom market in India was booming. Lots of private telcos were starting. BSNL's monopoly was gone. So I could sense that there were lots of positive momentum in the market as well. But that's all looking at it right now. But I did not know this at that time. If your interests are drifting from time to time, right? Again, I want to say that's totally okay. And I want to refer to that slide I spoke about failure. Take an interest, spend some time on it, time box it. Say that I'm going to spend the next 3 months or 1 month or 6 months. You take the time, you can pick. See, it's all, you're writing your own exam paper and grading yourself. So you don't have to worry about anybody else. But be honest to yourself. and maybe have a mentor who will sort of keep you accountable. Will keep you honest and make sure you don't go overboard. Choose an area. For example, let me give you an example specifically, right? My interest right now is cryptocurrencies and blockchain, and I have no idea in this area, but I've told myself that I'm going to spend the next few months learning about this. And when I learn, I mean not just see videos and read about it, but actually try things. Write a smart contract, transfer cryptocurrency from me to somebody else, buy some objects on the internet, buy a course, educational course using cryptocurrency, or try to invest cryptocurrency to get interest, like you invest money in a bank and whatnot. So identify a few things that you can do and try that for a few months with minimum risk. So don't spend a lot of money on it. Try to do it with low risk and see if you're enjoying the experience. So first is, do you enjoy doing that? Did you find it interesting? Was it challenging for you mentally to try and do that? Second, were you doing it reasonably well, right? Was it a struggle for you versus were you able to quickly grasp and move on? And third, this is important, is it worth spending time on? Meaning, are a lot of people doing it? Is there a market for this? Are you solving a pain point for somebody? And that gives you a sense of whether you should spend more time on it, right? You could be doing something interesting. You could also be doing it easily, but let's say it is, and I don't want to dismiss this, but let's say it's gardening, right? Gardening is great. It gives you a lot of pleasure and you can probably do it very well. But you have to ask yourself the question, is this what you want to do in life, right? Is there an opportunity there, right? You do it as a hobby, but not as a career, right? Like that. So these are the 3 questions I'd recommend that you ask yourself when your interests change over time, to decide, should you really focus on that? And always the good constraint to keep in mind is time. Do not spend a lot of time on it. Spend some amount of time, not too less, not too long, to help you come to these answers yourself. And sometimes if you can't get these answers yourself, talk to somebody that you trust, who is in your mind is more established and more senior, who can guide you through these things. You have an excellent mentor community here at CG Alumni with all of us. Feel free to reach out to us when you have a question about this.
Sure, Senior. Thank you for your wonderful comments and session. Yeah.
Thank you so much. Do we have any more questions coming up? And so just to get a quick pulse, so where is everybody from the student side? Is everybody joining from Chennai? We heard that the college is reopened. So is it fair to assume that most of the students are joining from Chennai, either from the hostel or from their own homes? I mean, speaking up or typing in chat is okay.
Yes, sir. Most
Yes.
of us are from Chennai.
Are calling in from Chennai. Okay. So in the few minutes that we have left, could we also hear from, or just get your thought on how the session went? Maybe either speak up and share if you did you get something out of it, or if you want to put a number from, let's say, 1 to 5, where 1 is actually very bad, 5 is excellent. So if you want to put some numbers on the chat, don't worry about your name showing up or anything like that. We just want to get a sense of how it's received.
Yeah,
so,
and then if I may add, SK, and I was just thinking
yes,
about this as well. Yeah, it's all feedback is welcome. This is all helping us also improve these sessions as well. If you want to be anonymous for whatever reason, I just created this link as well. Feel free to use this. You can just give a number from 1 to 5, 1 star to 5 star there as well. So,
nice.
I hope
nice.
it still works. Let me just double check. I know it worked yesterday, but okay, it still works. Good. Yeah. So feel free to please share your feedback. Feedback is a gift. I would love to hear how you felt this was. I'll stop sharing now.
Thank you. I think some responses are coming in, but let me, is there if I check that survey? Will we be?
Oh, that's a good question. I have not figured that part out yet, SK, and I'm sorry.
No,
Maybe
no
I should
problem.
do it after this meeting.
No problem. No
I
problem.
literally did this morning when I was preparing for this meeting.
Okay.
So,
We have KG join us. KG is a mentor and volunteer at Ask a CGen, and I think maybe KG has a question. Please go on, unmute yourself, KG.
Hi, thank you. Somehow I missed to join, but I'm going to catch up with the recording. But it was very, very interesting presentation I went through, and I was like, this is what I would have learned. I'm like 28 now. It's not bad, but I lost eight years, I would say, in learning some of this. I also like speak for everyone else in that sense. So one thing I noticed is like, as you get into your career, you get there is technical skills that you are after, like you are a mechanical engineer or electrical engineer. But after going in deep into your career, after some time, it's less of a technical, although your work is technical, but your career advancements, your progression, everything is like less and less technical, more and more, working together, getting things done, managing people, projects, communication and stuff, right? So I think that's not emphasized at college, right? Like you are really looking short term to get a job. That is very, very technical job that you're trying to. But once you get there, you start to realize one of the other things was also the business skills, right? Like the amount of things that you can generate with the work you do. You could be electrical engineer, but today AI could be something interesting, and that generates more revenue today than any other thing. So how do you see that and prepare from your days? Like, should we prepare working on projects with a focus on impact or commercial value, long-term things? Like how would you suggest going about those things?
Okay. That's a great question, KG. And I will confess when I start that, I might not have all the answers myself, but I will attempt and give you my perspective on this. I would start off by saying the work that you do, it's like a three-legged stool, right? One leg is, it should be something that you have some level of skill set. You don't have to be the best person in the world at that particular technology or whatnot, but you should be reasonably good at it, right? That's one thing to focus on. That would be great, right? If you're really great at it, let's say you're the top AI expert in the world, the world is at your feet, you can do whatever you want, and AI can be replaced with anything. The top people in any field are really ahead. So you want to aim to be there, but it's okay if you're not quite there, right? So that's one leg. The second leg of that stool is, it should be something that you are motivated to do, meaning you enjoy doing it. It should not be a struggle on a daily basis, because you need to wake up in the morning, especially when things are not going well, that you can sort of find the self-motivation. So that motivation to work on that area should be something more than just the money. It should be more, I find this interesting, for whatever reason, right? And the third thing I would say is, it should be an industry which has headroom for growth, because then you've heard that saying, the rising tide lifts all boats, right? If the industry by itself is growing, then you have more opportunities. If one company doesn't work, you can go to a different company. So let's take, for the last 10 years, web technologies have been great, right? If you were a software engineer working in a cloud company, pretty much you had your choice of opportunities today. You are really well placed, right? So while I'm saying you should not really focus only on that, you should still be aiming to do really well at whatever you do, and it should be something that's interesting. It's not a bad idea to focus in an industry area where you see possibility for growth. And this is a little hard to guess, right? You have to be a little bit aware of what's going on, talk to a lot of people, see trends. One practical example I can think of, especially for our juniors at colleges, look at all the open job descriptions posted on all the websites. See what are some of the keywords that will give you a sense of where the industry is going. But these are the three aspects. This is how I would look at, planning out my career. And to your point, beyond all of this, you have to be able to work with people, build influencing skills and whatnot. Those are important. But what areas to work on, this is how I would think about it. Did I please give me some feedback on whether I sort of was directionally right in answering the question, or did I get it wrong?
No. This is yeah. I don't know if you also know about the Ishikawa, right? Or the desire circle, which is Japanese concept. I think you touched upon similar. Yeah, I can totally agree with that. It's only that sometimes we are like too much attached to one of the things that we don't see the other things. Like you said about the rising tide, right? Like it's okay to switch gears and go to the rising tide, but sometimes we are very passionate about something. For example, during my college days, I was working on a project that was very old school and had like very good theoretical thing, but practically it was not a really real thing. And then when I switched out, it turned out to be very good. So that was what I was looking for. Yeah. So don't get attached to only one thing, but look around other three things that you mentioned and get a balance. And that was really helpful. Yeah.
Makes sense. Okay. Yeah. Excellent point. I think essentially what you did is you worked on it for some time. You realized you sort of did an experiment. You said, this is great. I like doing this. But you time boxed it and you said, okay, at some point I'm going to move to something else. And that all these things that you did there helped you do whatever you did next well as well. So it was not wasted time also.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you so much. This is very interesting presentation, and we need a lot of, because at this time we see a lot of people struggling, sticking to one careers, and it's okay to change. That's the point I want to bring to the wider audience, that if you're thinking to change, which I was struggling because I was basically a mechanical engineer. I didn't want to switch out of mechanical. Today I do like software for mechanical things, like for trucks. So it was interesting change, but I didn't see that it could be possible before. So yeah, thank you so much.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Thank you. And we are hearing that at least from 3 or 4 people that the session was wonderful. So thank you so much, Mani. Thank you for the time, and thanks to all the students for participating. If you have any further last-minute questions, please feel free to shoot. If not, we'll be saying more thanks to Mani, and then I'll stop the recording, and then we'll join you for the next edition. Thanks.
So if I may add, just Askena, one last thing I just realized.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
I mentioned a lot of books in this presentation, and if these books are not there in the CEG library, I think I'm happy to send a couple of copies of the books to the CEG library, but I would ask for a volunteer from this group who can help me understand how to send it to the CEG library, so that if that's useful. Or
this is a great thing. Thank you so much, Mani. I think this is a great suggestion. So I think we can ask our students, is there anyone who can volunteer to take this up? If Mani, Sridhar and Sigana can arrange for some of these books to be donated to the library, who can volunteer and take this up and actually make it happen?
Yeah. Hi, this is Deepak. So I think today now the director of library is Arudai Nambi sir. He's a math professor. He's also looking for any initiatives and what we can improve the reading experience at college. So he would be the right person to suggest books, or we can also talk with him. So if you are really interested to contribute books.
Great, thank you, Deepak. So are you volunteering that you will help?
Yeah, I can do. So I passed out from college. I am 2020 passed out.
I see.
BE Computer Science passed out. So I was the student president at 2020 term. So I worked with a lot of professors and the dean's initiatives. So I thought, thank you so much, senior. So it would be really helpful. So if you could share some of the self-help books to the Anna University Library. So maybe I'm actually planning to visit him tomorrow. So I will also leave a word with him, like our college pastor is willing to contribute books. So maybe I can also share any email IDs or numbers if you could share with me, so that we can easily bridge the gap.
So let me message you directly, Deepak, sharing my phone number, and then we can connect on WhatsApp, and then let's take this forward. Mani, I will connect Deepak and we can. So thank you. This is a wonderful gesture. I think one that will go a long way to help students. Thank you so much.
Thank you. All right.
Okay, we're at the top of the hour. Thanks everyone for joining, and hope you all have a good weekend. Rest of what is left.
Thank you. It was great being here.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.